Hello everyone. In today's tutorial, we'll be integrating the MCP server with Free5GC. Recently, Free5GC released their documentation or blog on this MCP server integration with Free5GC, and here they have written a lot of things about its architecture and use cases. So, firstly, let's go through the documentation, and then we will go to the overall integration and to the terminal part, like how to do that part. So, following this documentation, which is officially by Free5GC, you can find it on their blogs page. So yeah, it's just a basic introduction about Free5GC and MCP, and then they have explained some core concept of MCP. For example, we have three components over here, and MCP host is the one, like for example, the IDE which we'll be using. In our case, we'll be using GitHub Copilot, so that is our MCP host, and the client is protocol that is basically connecting the host to the server, and MCP server is the program that exposes these resources to the GitHub Copilot agent or any other AI agent. So here we have some data layer and lifecycle things, the initialization flow, and some tool discovery and tool execution. And then they have few lines on why to use MCP. For example, one benefit of MCP is that you can write once and run anywhere. What that means is that the same MCP server configuration file that you will be using in this tutorial, you can use it with any MCP compliant client, with any MCP host. In simple terms, for example, you can use it with Cloud Desktop, with any IDE, with GitHub Copilot, right? So that's why it's write once, run anywhere, and then real-time context. It's not trained on data. For example, LLMs are limited by training, so it fetches the data real time. For example, if we ask is the UPF running, so it will fetch all the APIs and will give the response in terms to that. Then here we have the system architecture. If we quickly have a look on it, it's like the AI agent. For example, it is the host, the MCP host, and then we have the MCP server for Free5GC, and both of these are connected by the MCP client over the HTTP. And then this MCP server is connected to the web console wrapper and lifecycle scripts that are basically used to start and stop Free5GC. So yeah, this is like overall system architecture what we will be following in the video. And after that, we have some walkthrough about the MCP protocol flow. So this is the basic configuration file that we'll be using to run the server, the MCP server. So here you can see it will be running on localhost 8080, and we are telling it about the web UI based URL from where it can make those API requests and responses, and also the path where we have cloned the Free5GC repository. And if we go a bit down, yeah, a few more things. Here we have the tool discovery. Basically, so it's a method, and in this method there are many tools. So these are the one which will be doing all the things underneath, like all your operational things, all your monitoring and tuning and performance and everything. So all these will be performed by these tools, which we can also see in the code base. So they had a very big file where all these things are explained, and so yeah, they have some tools for the CRUD operations. Then we have some tools for lifecycle management, for example, to start, stop, and see the status. And then yeah, obviously for some Kubernetes based tools as well. And then they have some security thing, like how to enforce security, why the MCP is it resilient. And now we have some examples of workflows which are enabled by MCP. For example, the first example is the lifecycle management, in which we are performing, if I zoom in, so here you can see we are performing a simple action. We are saying please start Free5GC, and the MCP host is calling the server basically, and it's performing all the actions based on that. Similarly, for Kubernetes and Helm orchestration deployment, you can also perform the same thing. And for inventory and provisioning for subscribers, you can also see, for example, if you want to see the current status of any subscriber, or for multiple bunch of subscribers, so you can perform that as well. And you can obviously, it's not only reading the operation, you can also say I want to add 3 subscribers, do this, and then it can also perform that thing. So yeah, I guess it's fine. Now we can, yeah, so if you want to have a look in more details about any particular thing, you can just follow the documentation, go to Free5GC page, and open this documentation and read it out. So now, without wasting any more time, we can move to the deployment part, like how to basically replicate the same thing into your system. So if you go to references, and here we have the GitHub repository link that we will be following. I've already opened it over here. So this is the repository which basically had the instructions on how to integrate the MCP part. So if we go a bit down, here we have some features which are like the CRUD operations and network control and tenant user management. So these things. Down, then we have some prerequisites that you need to install in your system before moving further. In my case, I've already done this part, so that yeah, then we have the simple Free5GC setup. So you can do it by yourself, either by following this documentation, or I will prefer going to the Free5GC website, go to the documentation part, and go to the user guide, and here you can follow all the installation guide. In our case, we'll be building Free5GC on host, so you can follow this guide if you want to install Free5GC on host, specifically this one. So yeah, these are some simple steps to just install Free5GC, build and clone, and then building the web console and running it and verifying. And then we are adding or configuring sudo for MCP server, because MCP requires passwordless sudo privileges. So we are configuring that part in our run.sh file. So you can also do the same following this README. And now the important part is, setting up the MCP server. So this is the main part that we'll be talking about in this video. So firstly, we need to clone this Free5GC MCP repository, and after that we'll just simply do make build. So in my case, I've already built it. I've already cloned it. So if we go inside Free5GC MCP, you can see this is my repository, and we simply need to do make build. All right, and after that we need to configure the MCP server. So we are using Free5GC on local system, which is like on host. So we'll be editing the config.yaml file. So we can edit config. And in my case, already done that. I provided the web UI base URL on which my web console is running. And this is the path where my Free5GC repository is cloned and from where I build it into a system. So this is what you need to configure as well. For example, I already told what you need to do. And then you can simply run the MCP server. So we can do, make run. So now our MCP server is running, and you can also see the specific line that these GIN logs, in the GIN logs, it's listening on HTTP at 8080. So it's working fine. Now we can verify the MCP server, if it is running or not, by these commands, or by the curl command simply, I can say. So let me create another terminal, and let me simply run these commands. All right. So you can see the response here. And also if you go to the terminal, you can see the GIN log saying the HTTP code 200, which means everything is fine. And again, we can see the available tools, which we discussed in the Free5GC documentation. And here we go. So here we have a lot of things. It doesn't look very good, but if you go line by line, you will find a lot of details and tools. For example, here we have the tool section, and if we go inside it, we have tenant, user, get, and description. Similarly, we have the APIs to call the subscribers to get the subscriber details, and then we have the APIs to get a few more things, specific subscriber details. So yeah, in order to create a new subscriber, you can see we have this specific API. So all these tools are basically integrated over here to perform all those actions. And also we can do, all right, so let's quickly have a look on the repository structure. So here I have my repository, which is Free5GC MCP, and the main file is this one, which is main.go, and here we have a few things. And if we go a bit down, this is the configuration file that I showed you. If we go into packages, APIs, we have the router.go, which is basically handling all the calls from here to there part. And yeah, so this is our MCP server.go file, where we have all the tools described. For example, we have the function get default subscriber data, and there is a very brief description of the function. Similarly, we have a lot of functions. If you go a bit down, where we can list, or where we can see all the tools. So here you can see we have all the tools, and we have switch statement in order to call the particular function whichever is desired at that moment. So we have these specific functions for specific task. So we can go to definition, and here you can see the definition of this function. Similarly, for example, if you want to have a look on to the definition of other functions, you can also see that. So yeah, for example, if you want to have a look onto the subscriber list, we can go to the definition, and here you can see we have this function which is calling this one. If we go here, we have basically the API to get the subscriber list, and we have the method get that we're using. For example, yeah, we're using get to get that specific logs or specific data from the specific API. So in similar way, all these other functions are working, and you can just go into depth and explore the overall code base and everything. So also we have one more file inside the script. There's test mcp.sh in order to test all the tools if everything is working fine or not. So we can also run that. Let's have a look here. Okay, and we can run with scripts and test. Okay, so here we have all the logs, and I guess everything is working fine. This is the same thing that I showed you earlier. And then we have a few more things which is calling the subscriber list, create, get, patch, and a few things are showing internal server error because they require some input to perform some action, so it's fine. Otherwise it's okay in most of the things. So yeah, now let's clear it and let's move back to the documentation part. So till here we are done. Now the next step is to integrate the GitHub Copilot with the MCP server. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we simply need to create this file. In my case, I've already done that, and simply put the content in this file. And after that, we are going to reload the VS Code, and so that the agent can fetch the configuration file. And after that, I guess we are sorted out. That's pretty much it. And now it says we can open the chat and ask about a few things like this and that. And then we have tool summary, which tool perform which kind of action. For example, start, stop, and status, which obviously says itself by its name what they perform. Then we have some functions which are listening on following addresses, and some management tools, some tenant management tools, and these are related to Kubernetes, and some references. So yeah, then we have some example usage, Copilot. Yeah, so these are a few examples that you can ask the AI agent to perform in your chat box. So let's try to start with this basic command in the Copilot agent. So here we are back on the VS Code section, and if you go to the Copilot chat box, and here we can start with a very basic command. For example, status of Free5GC. And as soon as the agent, yeah, you can see, as soon as the agent try to fetch the status of Free5GC by the MCP, you can see the GIL logs over here. So it confirms that the Copilot is trying to use the MCP agent and trying to call the APIs through it to access the data. So we can allow everything. It's fine. It says all the functions are down. All right. So we can ask it to up the 5G core by using this simple command, right? And you can see the increased number of GIL logs with response to 100. I hope everything is fine. One issue that I am thinking about is the issue can be in the web console because I'm running that externally on the system, but let the MCP agent do its work. Let's see what it will figure out. Let's see, the root cause is that there is some port conflict from duplicate. Yeah, let's allow this section. Yeah, and I believe the main issue that the web console that I'm running externally is causing the issue because it is trying to again. Okay, now cleanup is complete and it's starting the Free5GC. All right, let's wait for a few more seconds. Okay, it says that 11 coordinate functions are running, and okay, it's reachable. Web console is still stalled, but I believe it should work. If you go to localhost, yeah, 5000, Yeah, because I'm running web console externally on my system, so I can do it. Yeah. All right, so everything is running fine, and we have no subscribers, and we can also verify if everything is running or not if we create one more terminal and if we do boot. Okay, so here you can see MongoDB. MongoDB is running fine. And can you see something? Yeah, we have web console also running, MongoDB also running, and there should be, yeah, we have other NFs as well, SMF, UDR, PCF, so everything is running somewhere, AMF. Yeah, so it means the agent is not lying, it's doing its job. Okay, so next thing what we wanted to perform is, let's see, we can stop the Free5GC, but we'll do it later. Yeah, status, it already says that everything is up, and we can see list of subscribers. All right, and we can go back here. So we can allow this session. All right, yeah, because we even cannot see any subscriber here. All right, so we can ask it to create new subscriber because we don't have any subscribers. So let's ask it to do the same. All right, and whenever this LLM agent is trying to do any task, you can see all the logs in the on the MCP server running over here. So it is doing everything via the server, as you have seen in the architecture diagram on the Free5GC blog page. And it says the subscriber is created successfully with the following details. And if you go here and if we do a little bit of refresh, yeah, you can see the subscriber is created, which is good. We can also delete it, and what we can do is we can also create subscriber in bulk. For example, we can ask it to create subscriber from 01. Okay. Yeah. So we should be able to see all the subscribers. Now you can see we have all the subscribers from 1 to 5, and this one is the one that we created earlier. Nice. And we can ask him what Okay, so it basically showed the log summary of the startup status, this, and gap listening on this, and there are some initial registration issues. But finally, the status is that AMF is listening on this with OAuth setting received from NRF, so which is fine. And we can also ask if we have any UE connected or not. Is there any UE connected to the core? Yeah, no UE connection logs found, so that's right, we are not running any UE for now. However, it is performing additional test, for example, if UE ransom is running or not. Yeah, so it finally confirmed that there are no UEs currently connected to the Free5GC core. Okay, do we have some more example? Okay, we can also get the users for tenant ID this. All right. So firstly, we'll ask the status of all 5G subscribers. All right, and then what we can do is we can get all users for this tenant ID, and we can get the tenant ID from here. Mm-hmm. Okay, it says there is one user and a tenant ID, which is admin, which is right. And what else? Let's check the documentation. The status already done. Everything is running fine. And yeah, we can also do a few more examples with Kubernetes by doing the deployment of Free5GC over Kubernetes, which can be done separately in another video because doing it here will consume a lot of time. Then we can also do some of usage of some of these tools. For example, if you want to delete some of the subscribers, let's say delete the subscriber. This one is the odd one out, so we can just copy and paste it over here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, now everything seems to be in order. And let's see if we have something else interesting. Create multiple subscribers, we already done. We can also update some few specific subscriber details. And then we have some boards, start, stop, and status. And yeah, I guess we covered pretty much everything about it. So yeah, this was a very basic and short video on like the MCP integration with Free5GC. And the final step can be to stop Free5GC. And we can have a look on to the terminal part as well. Okay, it says everything is stopped and we should not see any network function, which obviously we cannot. And this is the MCP server, obviously it should be running. So yeah, everything is working as desired. So this was like pretty much a very basic use case of what can be achieved by using MCP server integration with Free5GC and all, and it can be enhanced or increased by introducing the UE integration tools, right? Like start the UE, stop the UE, for example, UE ransom. In terms of Kubernetes, I guess there are already, let's check it out. Yeah, they only have the UE ransom start and stop tools. So you can also check it out manually by performing all the following commands in order to see the end-to-end examples as well. So yeah, that was all about the video, and see you in the next one.